Picture this. The cabin lights are dim. The low hum of the engines creates that oddly comforting background buzz, and passengers are settling in with earbuds, neck pillows, and cups of ginger ale. It's just another ordinary flight, or so everyone thought. But seated quietly near the front, hidden under a hoodie, dark shades, and a cap pulled low, was none other than Denzel Washington. Yes, that Denzel. But no one knew, and that's exactly how he wanted it. What no one realized was that he wasn't just dodging the paparazzi or trying to play a prank. He was grieving. A private family tragedy had struck just hours before. The kind of loss that leaves your chest heavy and your eyes raw from crying. Instead of making a public spectacle or crafting some polished PR statement, he chose silence. He chose solitude. And he chose this flight as his escape. But grief, as it turns out, was not the only trial waiting for him on that plane. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The disguise worked too well. He didn't look like a Hollywood legend, or even a man of means. He looked like someone who had fallen on hard times. A baseball cap with fraying edges. A hoodie that had clearly seen better days.
No entourage, no flash chilagi.
Just jeans, sneakers, and a man keeping his head down. For some, that image sparked judgment instead of compassion. And that's where things took a shocking turn. The flight attendant, tasked with providing comfort and professionalism, instead saw him as an intruder. She eyed him with suspicion as though he didn't belong. She questioned his boarding pass in a voice loud enough for surrounding passengers to hear. Twice, then a third time. Each time her tone grew sharper, more dismissive. People began to stare. Some whispered. And then, the cutting line that pierced through the quiet cabin. Sir, this section is for paying customers. Imagine that for a moment. A man who had paid for his seat, just as anyone else, carrying the invisible weight of fresh grief, being accused publicly of sneaking into first class. Denzel didn't snap. He didn't lash out. He didn't flash his name or pull rank. He simply handed her his pass again and said calmly, "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be."
No anger, no theatrics.
Just quiet dignity. Passengers could feel the tension. Some cringed. Others pulled out their phones, sensing that this moment would not end here. And it didn't. As the flight continued, life had a way of flipping the script. Turbulence rattled the plane. Drinks sloshed. Bags shifted overhead. One passenger, a young woman seated just a few rows away, fainted. Panic erupted. People froze, unsure of what to do. And who was the first to act? The homeless man the attendant had mocked. Denzel leapt from his seat, instincts sharp and steady. He bent beside the woman, comforted her, and called for water. He steadied her breathing, reassured her panicked seatmate, and worked with another crew member to make sure she was safe. Calm, composed, selfless. Traits that have defined him both on screen and off. It was in that moment that the mask slipped. Someone looked closer. The hoodie shifted. The glasses came off briefly. A murmur spread. Then a gasp. Then silence. The passengers finally realized who had been sitting among them the entire time. Denzel Washington, the man they'd admired for decades, the man who had just been humiliated, had also just stepped up in crisis without hesitation. The plane seemed to hold its breath. And when the truth clicked, the embarrassment for that flight attendant became unbearable. Passengers who had filmed the earlier exchange now had a before and after story that was destined to go viral. By the time wheels touched the runway, the internet had already exploded. Clips surfaced across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Millions watched as Denzel's quiet grace clashed against the attendant's mocking suspicion. The outrage was immediate. Comments poured in. How dare they treat him like that? This is about more than Denzel. It's about respect. How many others are judged like this every day just for how they look? The story became more than celebrity gossip. It became a national conversation about prejudice, profiling, and the humanity we owe one another in everyday spaces. The airline's leadership didn't wait for the outrage to cool. Within hours, the attendant was suspended. By the next morning, she was fired. A public apology rolled out, complete with polished corporate statements about values and respect. But the damage had already been done. The humiliation wasn't just about mistreating a movie star. It was about exposing the thin line between assumption and compassion. It asked a painful question. If this could happen to Denzel Washington, beloved and recognized worldwide, what happens every day to people without fame, wealth, or influence? Denzel, for his part, didn't go on a tirade. He didn't demand retribution. He didn't even speak publicly about the incident. Instead, those who were on the flight carried his story forward. Their videos, their testimonies, their outrage painted the picture. And the public saw not just a movie star but a grieving man who handled humiliation with grace, who helped a stranger in crisis when it mattered, and who embodied the humility we often forget celebrities possess. The irony is almost cinematic. A man who has played countless heroes on screen didn't need a script or a director to remind him how to act in real life. In the face of cruelty, he chose composure. In the face of crisis, he chose action. And in the face of exposure, he chose silence. His actions, rather than his words, became the lasting headline. Isn't it strange how moments like this, unexpected, unscripted, unpolished, often reveal more about who we are than years of curated interviews or public appearances? And yet, the lingering question remains, why did it take his fame to make people listen? Why did it take his recognition for the entire plane to shift from dismissal to respect? That's the haunting echo of this story. It shines a light on how often dignity is denied until someone is seen as worthy. It's a reminder, uncomfortable but necessary, that grace shouldn't be reserved for those who carry a famous name. But maybe that's why this story spread like wildfire. Because deep down, people saw more than just celebrity drama. They saw themselves. They remembered the time they were judged for looking tired at the airport. The time a waiter dismissed them because of their clothes. The time a teacher assumed the worst because of a stereotype. Denzel's quiet words, "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," echoed beyond that cabin. They became a rallying cry for anyone who's ever felt out of place, unseen, or unfairly judged. And perhaps that's where the real power of this moment lies. Not in the firing, not in the apology, but in the spark it left behind. A reminder that respect doesn't cost anything, but disrespect can cost everything. A flight attendant's career, an airline's reputation, and, most importantly, a person's dignity. So here's the takeaway, one worth carrying into your daily life. Pause before you judge. Look twice before you assume. Extend compassion, even when it's not convenient. Because you never know who's sitting in front of you. It might be a grieving father, a struggling neighbor, or, yes, even Denzel Washington. And wouldn't the world be better if kindness was the first instinct, not the last? Stories like this stick with us not because they're about Hollywood stars, but because they strip away the glitter and remind us of something basic, something human. We all crave dignity. We all deserve respect. And sometimes, it takes the quiet strength of someone like Denzel to remind us how far-reaching a single act of grace can be. So next time you find yourself in that split second of choice, whether to scoff or to smile, to dismiss or to dignify, remember this flight. Remember the silence of that cabin. Remember how one man's quiet composure shook an entire country. Then ask yourself, what kind of story do I want to leave behind in the small, ordinary moments of life? Because at the end of the day, the world isn't changed by grand speeches or carefully crafted press releases. It's changed in the seat next to you, in the kindness you choose, and in the dignity you extend. And if you've read this far, maybe you're already part of that change. Now it's your turn. What would you have done if you were on that flight? Would you have spoken up? Would you have recorded? Or would you have sat quietly, letting the moment pass? Share your thoughts. Tell your story. Because sometimes, sharing is the first step toward a kinder world.